Hi, my name is Teniel Sabin, and this presentation will be about early learning, UDL, and the different equity elements and how they apply to my current position in early learning. First, I wanted to show a really quick video just to talk a little bit about the work that I do and give a better sense about the setting, because a lot of folks, most I would say of the folks that are in the program and in the classroom are not involved in early learning. I'm going to fast forward it just a little bit. Okay. So again, I would be considered one of the coaches. So I work with, my title is an infant toddler consultant and coach, but I also work in infant mental health. So I go into the different centers and work one-on-one with teachers. I also provide trainings as a group, so a small group of teachers or to the whole center. And then also I do webinars for different programs that my agency offers. And I work for a nonprofit agency. It's called Child Care Resources, and they receive a majority of its funding from Washington Department of Early Learning. So that's who actually coordinates and runs the Early Achievers program. They provide us funding to go out to the child care centers. The Department of Early Learning runs the ECAP program, so preschool, that's state funded. They also run a lot of different home visiting programs for parents, and also they actually license the different childcare centers, both family childcare in people's homes and then also center-based childcares. So, and even though the video said that it is optional, right now, if a center accepts state subsidy assistance from low-income parents, they are required to participate in this program. And if they don't get a level 3, then there is talk about not letting them be licensed anymore. Um, just kind of a couple fun little jokes. So some mentoring. This one is just kind of, Obi-Wan and Luke to show mentoring, and then also fun kitties to show the kind of classroom side of things and trainings. Just a little bit about the learners, and as you saw from the video, I think they did a pretty good job of showing a variety and the diversity of the providers that we work with. I speak Spanish, so typically I get assigned to Spanish-speaking providers. Unfortunately, most of the coaches and the trainers are, I would say, represent the demographic of white women, and that is a complete opposite of the demographic that we're actually working with. There's not a whole lot that actually speak under other languages as well. So multiple languages and cultures. Right now, the largest populations I would say that are going into childcare are Spanish and also East African, so Somali, Arabic, and Ethiopian or Eritrean languages. A variety of education levels. Most of the providers have less than a college degree, so between a high school diploma and maybe a certificate program. But most of the providers that we work with have not gotten beyond that certificate program. Some of them have an AA, but pretty diverse levels of education, and then also levels of professional experience. There's teachers that have just started, maybe just out of high school, or this is their first job, and then other teachers that have been doing this work for 30 years and are going through the same changes and the same challenges because they're having to learn all new ways of interacting with kids. And so these are just some graphics about the different providers that were enrolled, at least in the coaching and training program, 3,327, and that's across the state of Washington, different actual centers. And then the little circle here, circle graph, separates it into center-based programs and family child cares. So there's a majority of center-based programs. And then this just talks a little bit about how many trainings have actually been completed. So 13,000 early achievers trainings and then 10,000 non-early achievers trainings. So just a little bit about myself. I provide the trainings, but I also do one-on-one consultation. And these are just kind of from my viewpoint, and then the center or the agency that I work for, the values that they have. So diversity and equity are really big on their relationships, when you're mentoring others, critical reflection, focus on the strengths of the providers we work with, and really mindfulness. So helping them to also think about how they're doing on a regular basis. I'm going to talk a little bit about the application of UDL. At least in the one-on-one coaching, it's a little trickier to talk about, but usually we use video recordings, handouts, and a lot of it is kind of collaboration or talking one-on-one, or what we call reflective practice, trying to let the learner kind of lead the discussion about what they're interested in. And at least with the trainings, when we think about multiple means of representation, usually I try to incorporate video, probably some sort of PowerPoint presentation, depending on how formal. If I'm doing a large group, I'll probably use a PowerPoint. If I have a really small group, I normally will make it more of a kind of a discussion format, and probably would just have an agenda. Usually have handouts that they can use to either take notes on, or that can give them a little bit more information, or has other resources. And then usually we have like posters. I try to write up notes onto posters, or have different activities require that they either write on posters or put like a sticky note on a poster to vote for something. At least for myself, I can do presentations in English and in Spanish, and I usually try to have materials in both languages, both the videos, have them subtitled, and then also have any handouts in the other language, and then also provide resources if I know that other folks will be there. And usually I do know who I'm training ahead of time, so try to have the multiple languages that I know will be represented, and have either handouts or have web links of where they can go to get more information. And I try to have, again, with the handouts, some sort of graphic organizers or interactivities that access kind of prior learning and help them brainstorm about what their needs are or what they're seeing. Something or in action and expression. So physical action, a lot of times there's just a varied different kinds of discussion and group formats during the training. I try to get them to move around, to participate in things. So like go to different corners of the room, or write some responses on a sticky note and come up and post it on different posters around the room to kind of provide their input. There's opportunities for individual group input, guided notes. So I try to have some sort of graphic organizer so that they can kind of write down what they're thinking about, and then also just kind of anything we practice that they have a format to follow. Also opportunity for journal writing or reflection. And then also, like I said, an opportunity to practice skills. It's a little tricky with the trainings because there are some trainings where I don't know the learners ahead of time, or I don't know what knowledge they have. It might be the very first time I've worked with them. Usually I get a chance to work with the teachers first before actually offering a formal training. But sometimes it's also difficult to gauge what everyone's participation style is inside the meeting, or what their needs are. So. And the last one, multiple means of engagement. So I try to give lots of choices of topics and assess the needs and goals of learners. So if I'm working with a teacher or a group of teachers beforehand, I often will ask them, and we'll make like a plan together about what they're interested in learning. And also I do different assessments of the classroom that are based on kind of the quality improvement standards. So I have also a general idea of where I would like them to go. But I usually let them kind of choose. And often they're very aligned with what they want to work on. Usually in the group work, I try to focus on real life examples, or I have them come up with examples and ask them, like, can you think of a time when it was challenging? Or let's think of a problem we can try to solve together. And also help them plan for their own classroom. So if I give them any sort of like group work or scenarios, I want it to be applicable to something that they are dealing with every day. So usually we'll do kind of like a case example of something that one of the teachers is dealing with. And then at the end, I usually try to do something like goal setting. So what do you need? What do you plan on doing as a result of this training? What do you need to be successful? And also some sort of self-reflection. So again, to kind of review what they learned, I have some sort of activity to kind of talk a little bit about that, so everyone can kind of share that way. The equity elements from Hughes, of course. One was available resources. So I try to make it so that the trainings require as little technology as possible. We usually do have free Wi-Fi. So if the students had a smartphone, then they could use that to look things up. I usually try to provide as many kind of exploring and creating activities as possible. Usually they'll be doing like groups discussions, or I'll give them like an idea or a scenario, and they will kind of work through it and figure out how they can solve it depending on what the training topic is. Most of, again, because I'm in a training with teachers that I typically work with, I know their kind of level of education and know their language needs, and so I'm able to kind of make it more accessible for them, I feel. Cultural relevance, again, I try to have it in Spanish if most of the teachers speak Spanish, or when I offer one-on-one assistance, try to make sure that I'm sensitive to just the different caregiving styles according to different cultures, and the different learning styles as well, and the different preferences. And so I usually try to ask them what they would prefer, and always make participation optional as far as speaking out in the whole group. And societal roles and expectations. Usually I try to, again, because the agency I work for is so focused on social justice and kind of becoming a kind of non-racist organization or ending institutional racism, a lot of times there's automatic kind of discussion about those things, and then trying to include just different models and different graphic depictions, and different discussion elements that would include all different roles, or gender roles, or cultural roles as well. And again, I haven't dealt with folks who have needed accommodation, but I always assume that there's folks that need different levels of support in the classroom, or in the training. And so I also try to feel out, okay, what is the pace that is needed? I try not to be the one lecturing or talking most of the time. I try to offer a lot of opportunities for them to learn from each other. And I believe a lot in the different cooperative learning strategies, and try to have them lead learning. I'll provide a little bit of lecture, and then we'll watch some videos and things, and then provide ample time for discussion and application to their current setting. And just a question, and if there's any questions for you to reflect on, I'll put them in this little dashed box. So in your work, which element do you find most lacking in your setting? And I would say for me, the one that I have the most challenge with, at least across the board, is our cultural relevance, because we don't have enough trainers and mentors or coaches of different cultures, or that speak different languages. So it's sometimes through the use of interpreters that some folks have to communicate, and that you may be communicating and kind of closing that language gap, but you're not always closing the cultural gap. And there's lots of other more subtle ways that can be challenging as far as forming relationships and helping the person learn. So Pacey had said that as technology progresses, the humans also follow. And here's some neat little cats that are using technology. Sorry, I really like to make things fun, so I hope that's okay. It definitely keeps people more engaged. Oopsie. And these are just something that I also try to do, is provide some different websites and resources. So I'm thinking that this will show up if I click on it through here. Let me see. I'll share my whole desktop, I think. Okay. So I usually try to provide some other web resources where teachers can go, and this is actually my personal, like my page that I do, and so it's in Spanish, and it's child development information and infant mental health information. Go back here. Also, the National Center for Quality Teaching and Learning is another resource that I would typically recommend to teachers. They have really nice videos. They have really simple posters. And it's just the way that it's lined up is very easy for most teachers to kind of follow along, and it's separated into different topics. And under each topic, there's a video, there's some resources, and there's also resources for like ELL teachers. And also there's like tools for the trainers as well. So that's also a nice thing that helps, you know, training this kind of material. And then also YouTube is a great place as well, but I don't want teachers to just kind of go doing a basic search, but instead there's a couple different playlists that or channels that I refer them to that again will help them with the quality improvement. And part of them, my agency has kind of created this playlist for. I'm not going to wait for that to load because it's really slow. So just some different things that I think would be great to implement even more into not only my trainings, but also in general in my agency. Having individual tablets at each table group. So I use a tablet or an iPad with the mentoring I do. I take video and then afterwards I edit it and kind of pull out the best parts and then use it as kind of a reflective piece with the teacher. But having them available for teachers. Oh dear. Hang on one second because the video started playing. That's nice. Okay, where were we at? There we go. Okay, so also using smartphones and having some suggested apps. So there's a couple, especially working with kids with special needs, that's or helping them with behavior analysis. There's a couple different apps that I recommend them using. And then also trying to have more resources in multiple languages. Because I only speak English and Spanish, I'm kind of limited in finding other resources like YouTube channels or Facebook pages that provide tips for early educators. So for me, those would be a few things that I think we could boost. And I like how Muller talked about learning being a social process, and that technology is kind of a tool or helps facilitate the learning between the teachers, our instructor, and the students. And I can't remember if he went too much into focus, but for me, I like to be more of as the instructor, the facilitator of the learning among the students. So not feeling like I have all the answers, but helping them kind of share and pool their resources and knowledge. And for final reflection, what areas do you feel you need to work the most on to be more inclusive to all learners? So whether it is the UDL or in the equity scale, and then what do you need in order to be successful at that? So do you need to go to more trainings? Do you need to take other classes? Do you need more resources at your current position? And what would that look like? Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to hearing and seeing others' presentations. And here's my references.